perhaps you're used to us beginning with a song, and we will do that, but a preface to singing this morning is that I brought my mask again, and there's been a lot of conversation about whether we should be wearing masks, especially to sing. And so I just wanted to plant an idea in your head that maybe you would want to put your mask on as we sing. Maybe you don't. Please don't beat each other up about this. Just decide for yourselves what you want to do. The board will discuss this soon and decide whether they think we need to be wearing masks to sing. So, we have a round this morning, and because you're already sitting down, maybe it'll be easier to sing a round seated. Let's sing it. Did I hear a cheering? Let's sing Gathered Here through one time together, and then we'll split up and start with this side and come in this side on the next line. So we'll see. Let's sing Gathered Here through once together. Gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the power, Spirit draw near. So now you've got the idea. We'll start the first line, we'll just start here, and after this group has sung the first line, we'll start over here. And you can't see my mouth anymore because I now have a mask on, but we'll see how this works. We'll try it out. So, do you want to do an intro? Gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the power, Spirit draw near. Gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the power, Spirit draw near. Wow. Sounded good from up here. Thank you very much.
Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist congregation of Venice on this wonderful day. Aren't we glad we're here in paradise? My name is Dave Lyon. I'm a member of the Board of Trustees. We're a welcoming congregation. We welcome whoever you are, whomever you choose to love, wherever you are on your journey, we bid you welcome. Now here in Unitarian Universalist congregations, we do not have a creed, we do not have dogma. What we have are 7 principles, and I'm not going to go through them today, but if you want, I use this little bookmark which has the 7 principles, and if you'd love to have one, they have those at the welcoming table. But instead of mentioning those, I want to review our mission statement. We haven't talked about that for quite a while, of what is our mission here at UCOB, as we like to call it. We strive to be a welcoming, caring community, encouraging spiritual growth, seeking meaning, and pursuing justice. And I think sums it up very, very well. And I need to read that more often myself. So, do we have any new visitors that are brave enough to wave your arm and tell us your name and where you're from? First time, even second time, yes.
Nancy Johnson, originally from Wisconsin, but I live here part-time in Venice.
Welcome, Nancy, welcome. Thank you for coming today. Anybody else brave enough? Do we have any first-timers back from the Northlands that are returning this week? Yes. We've got several. We've got several back. That's great. That's great. Before we do our collection, I just wanted to mention one thing. November, we did a collection for Family Promise, South Sarasota County. we collected, through your generosity, $729. Now, before you applaud, our social justice people are working with an outfit, that's a poor term. They're working with the Flanzer Trust in Sarasota that matches, and South Family Promise is one of those they match. So we ended up netting for Family Promise $1,458. And now Tom Hartley and Dave Williams will start our collection, and I'll give you a couple of announcements. And the most important one today is after the service, after you get a cup of coffee, say hi to your neighbors for about 15 minutes, come back in, and Pam Palmer and the Board of Trustees are going to address you on what's happening in our search for a settled minister, an interim minister, and you may have heard contract ministers. And you'll be able to ask questions and hopefully get honest, straight answers. We want this to be a transparent process, and we'll do this on a regular basis going forward. Now, a few other announcements, and I just want to mention these are all in our website. uucov.org has it all, and Sally updates it daily. Not on Sunday, but through the week she updates it. Monday, for instance, Meatless Monday. Who's doing the sign up for that? Yes.
Right in the corner over there, it's outside on the eye, you can sign up.
Donna Judd. Okay.
5 o'clock.
Tuesday, there's a coordinated council meeting. There's a communication team meeting at 10. They're always looking for new members. Thursday, there's a book club. There's choir rehearsal. They're always looking for new people. Friday at 2, there's meditation. Saturday, Monk San is here at 10:30 for meditation. And then I wanted to mention one that's a brand new one. Next Saturday at 3 o'clock, our pianist Lisa Frank is having a 4 o'clock is having a recital of her students right here. And it's free. She says her students range from age 7 to 70. And some of them are very advanced, right? So it might be something fun to do next Saturday at 4 o'clock. But anyway, go to ucov.org. They're all there. For those of you that have Breeze on your computer or your cell phone, they're also there. With that, I'll turn our service over to our settled minister, the Reverend Khleber Van Zandt.
One thing that Dave did not mention, because it's probably not on the calendar yet, we will have an Advent service in this space on Thursday at 3. When I was last here 2 weeks ago, I said it would be at 4, and the choir immediately rose up in righteous indignation. So the choir will practice at 4 on Thursday, but we will have an Advent service, a period of quiet meditation and music on Thursday at 3. The reason I didn't do one this last Thursday is that Linda and I came home from visiting with family for the Thanksgiving holiday, and we had been likely exposed to COVID. And so we had to come home and get tests at CVS, as many of you have done, and we didn't get the results until yesterday. I have not seen a soul until yesterday when they told me that I was no longer sick in that fashion. So I'm glad to learn that. Thank you. Linda says we got negative results. Linda and I often get negative results. Gosh, I didn't know this was going south so fast. Also, since there is a Board of Trustees initiated meeting after church this morning, there will be no adult RE. You may have seen on the rolling slides an advertisement for that at 11. It will not happen this week because of this meeting this morning after the service. So no adult RE this week, but beginning again next week at 11. I think with that, the prelude begins our worship. call to worship this morning comes from Julianne Lepp. We seek our place in the world and the answers to our heart's deep questions. As we seek, may our hearts be open to unexpected answers. May the light of our chalice remind us that this is a community of warmth, of wisdom, and the welcoming of multiple truths. Let us worship together. We have our first hymn is at 221. It's Light One Candle, and it has been written by a man named Peter Yarrow. Yarrow. If you know his name is Yarrow, you must know that he's 1/3 of Peter, Paul, and Mary. So I invite you to, if you would like, put your masks on, rise up as you're willing and able, and we'll sing. Light one candle for the Maccabean children, with thanks that their light didn't die. Light one candle for the pain they endured when their right to exist was denied. Light one candle for the terrible sacrifice, justice and freedom declared. Light one candle for the wisdom to know when the peacemaker's time is at hand. Don't let the light go out. It's lasted so many years. Don't let the light go out. Let it shine through our tears. Light one candle for the strength that we need to never become our own foe. Light one candle for those who are celebrating the pain we so long ago. Light one candle for all we believe in, that anger won't tear us apart. Light one candle to bring us together, peace of the soul. Don't let the light go out. It's lasted for so many years. Don't let the light go out. Let it shine through our tears. What is the memory that's valued so highly? We keep it alive in that flame. What's the commitment to those who have died when we cry out they're not died in vain? Have we come this far always believing that justice would somehow prevail? This is the burden, this is the promise, this is the one fail. Don't let the light go out. It's lasted so many years. Don't let the light go out. Let it shine through our tears. If you'd remain standing, we have a responsive reading. It's called Hanukkah Lights. It's by the congregation Beth El of Sudbury, Mass., which will color the way they think about fall. I see. We gather in the chill of winter solstice, finding warmth from each other, nourishing hope where reason fails. Holy One of blessing, your presence fills creation. Holy One of blessing, your presence fills creation. You perform miracles for our ancestors in days of old and this season. Holy One of blessing, your presence fills creation. You have kept us alive seated. Our children still have their own religious education class by Zoom each Sunday at 10. We are dearly hoping they're going to be back on campus with us sometime soon. We shall see. Today we have on the chancel a new installation, and I would love it if Linda Underwood would come explain this tree.
Good morning. Boy, after a year and a half of being almost in isolation, it's a little overwhelming seeing all these faces look at me. I think I may have tears, but it's wonderful to see you all. Any articles that you read about living well in these times mentions a practice to focus on gratitude. UCOV has been holding a series of small groups working on our personal spiritual practices. One's just about finishing up with Judith Parker. But some of us have been learning to work on practicing and putting into life activities that fulfill us and remind us of what we should be doing. The secret to having all is knowing that you already do. The caring team came up with the idea of offering you a gratitude tree. Now, I was referring it to as a Charlie Brown Christmas tree, but I was told I should have a better title than that, and I agree. So this is a gratitude tree. And the idea is, throughout the season, you are invited to think of something that you have gratitude for and come up with some kind of an ornament that expresses that gratitude. No pressure. If you don't want to do this, that's fine. But for those of you who would like to reinforce gratitude in your life, this is an opportunity. You can do it quietly before church or after church if you would like. Or we're going to invite you starting today during a small section of the service to come up and put your ornament on the tree. You may do that quietly if you would like, or if you would like to share one sentence, because it's not a time for long speeches, of what this ornament represents, you are invited to do so. And at the end of this holiday season, for the beginning of the 2022, we will have a tree hopefully filled with all that we have gratitude for, and that it will give us some love and some gratitude for our lives and our work together. So that's the idea. And so now I would like to invite, I have two different kinds of ways to pin your ornament on. And if anybody has an ornament to share today, they are invited to come up and either do it quietly or to share one sentence about what it means. Come on up.
Dick and I were married 4 years ago Wednesday. And on our wedding day, our sister-in-law gave us this beautiful colored parrot to remember the day. So I am grateful for family, friends, and all the beautiful birds.
My family, my UCOV family, my husband, who's part of my family, and for still being alive. I'm grateful.
I put up an ornament that shows me and Tom because I'm grateful for
for him. We met, 5 years ago? Been married 3. He knows all the dates. And he's grateful for me, so I'm speaking for him too.
I put up an angel because I'm grateful for all those who are angels in my life.
I put a little Italian lady up because my first Christmas, I did not get a doll, and my mother was very upset. And she said that she would give me a doll every Christmas that she was still alive. And this is the last one she gave me, and I'm very grateful for it.
I'm great. I think I have a voice somewhere. I'm grateful for my good health and for my wonderful family and for all you people here at UCOB and for a good life generally speaking.
Hello. I put a heart filled with books on the tree because I am so very grateful for the friendship and the learning experience of the book club. Mine is a heart with the words friendship on it because that's what I'm grateful for, all my friends.
I put a small glass fish, which I acquired years ago, because I realize I'm so grateful for friends and family across many oceans, and I will finally get to see some of them very soon. I'm grateful for you, of course. Thank you.
And this is how it will work. And I'm grateful that this experiment is starting to work. Thank you.
Linda, you did say that people could do that for the coming weeks, correct? Consider that. I've missed allowing one person to say something before we got to gratitudes and sorrows, and I'm going to walk back here to Ruth and let her say what she was going to say. I apologize for missing.
Okay, I'm Ruth Boysworth, and I am a member of the book group. And we had yesterday our first annual Bonnie Norton book sale, sponsored by the book club. And I wanted to say that I'm grateful and joyful for the spirit of generosity shown by members and friends of this congregation. For months you have donated, and the UCO book group team has sorted, displayed, and sold hundreds of books. We collected $700 as of yesterday, with more to come, I hope, for another few days, for a gift to one of our charities, the Chaps Food and Hygiene Pantry, in the memory of John, Steve's husband. Special thanks to, I'm going to give special thanks to Jackie, Ginny, Dave, Steve, Ken, Olga, Jill, Nan, Claire, Rena, Richard, Eileen, Pam, Paula, Lorraine, Sally, Linda, Underwood, Tom, probably more than that. More than those people helped us, and I am happy and appreciative of it.
Thank you. That's a joy, I think. AV table, I'm walking to you to trade minds. Since that didn't work out so well. Let's see. That's not on either. Okay. Are we on? No. Are we on yet? Now we're on. Ma'am? Are there, if anybody has brought gratitude with you to church this morning, I'll bring you the microphone. but there will be personal and nonpartisan sharing, correct? Anybody brought gratitude with them today? Sorry, celebrations.
Hello, I'm Eileen Leapley. I have two celebrations. One is that we have our dear friend Patty Avery with us over in that corner. She's had a long struggle, but she's doing really well. And she and her sisters Barb and Betty are here, and we are very grateful for her. The other is a huge celebration, and Grace Grote is celebrating her 101st birthday. After the service and before the meeting, there's going to be cake out on the lanai. Please make sure you get some. Love you, Grace.
Other celebrations? And I'll hold the mic.
Jean and John Spitzer, back in Venice territory. I can't tell you the gift that's been given multiple times. We bumped into the church this morning. All the smiles and the warm welcomes, the book sale. It's just a tremendous sense of a door opening. The door that opens when we come back to Venice and we have such an appreciated community of friends and opportunities. Even you. So we send back smiles through the mask to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Other celebrations? If you've brought any sorrows with you to church this morning, I will bring you the microphone.
This is a concern, and I think most of you realize that Hal Schaefer is very sick, and I just want us all to hold him and Donna in our hearts.
Other concern, sorrows? May the gratitude and celebrations among us this day become a blessing to us all. May the concerns and sorrows of each be carried in all our hearts, a burden shared become a load lightened. And now our meditation today begins with words from the Unitarian Universalist minister, Laura Horton Ludwig. Spirit of life and love, light within and light without, be with us now as we enter the silence and stillness at the center of our being. As people of faith, we seek to live in a spirit of love and justice and peace, but we struggle to respond to the outer world and to our inner dramas in ways that manifest such love. At times we fear that love will not be strong enough. At times we struggle to hold on to our faith in love. At times we question whether love is really at the root of all things. These are the struggles that haunt our days and nights, and yet we are not without hope. In the stillness and silence of our own hearts, we read the imprint of love created not by our own will, but planted there for us to discover. By what or by whom, we cannot know, and yet it is there, a clue, a talisman, a beacon, a light within. May it keep hope alive even as we dwell in mystery. May it guide us as we seek to act wisely and well. May it help us to be vessels of compassion for one another and for our world. We lift up those in this community who face change, challenge, or loss this day as we hold within our hearts all who suffer. And now we pray, each in our own ways, into the silence. The hopes of this community are offered forth in the names of all those who've gone before and in the names of all those who will come after, in the names of all the helpers of humankind. Shalom, salam, amen, and blessed be. I believe that tonight is the final night of Hanukkah this year. Maybe in your home you'll light your menorah at sundown yet again. Maybe you'll say some prayers either by yourself or with a gathering of family or friends. Maybe you'll put your menorah in a window to be seen by others as they pass. Maybe you will give or be given gifts. Maybe you'll read once again the ancient story of the miraculous restoration of the light in the temple. Even if you're not going to do any of those things, even if this story doesn't resonate with you so much, it's probably good to remember that the story of Hanukkah, it's probably good to remember the story of Hanukkah and to know why it's important in the Jewish calendar. There are several ways to interpret the story and its meaning, of course. I think the story in a nutshell would be something like this. A wicked king of Syria named Antiochus IV Epiphanes ordered the Jews in Israel to stop practicing their own religion and instead to worship Greek gods. A lot of Jews became angry, and some of them decided they needed to fight back. In 165 before the Common Era, a band of Jewish fighters, came to be known as the Maccabees, managed to drive the Syrian army out of Jerusalem and to reclaim the temple there. After that victory, the Maccabees wanted to rededicate the temple by lighting an eternal flame, but they only had enough purified oil to burn for one day, they thought. When that little bit of oil lasted 7 days longer than they thought it would, the Jews proclaimed that God had performed a miracle by lighting their temple for 8 days and nights. And what would you say would be the gift in that story? You could say that the gift was God's miraculous lighting of the temple. You could say that the ultimate gift in the story was that the Jews stood up for themselves and drove out a cruel ruler. You could say that the gift was that God intervened to save God's people once again. Or you could say that the gift is simply that the story itself continues to light the hearts and the homes and the temples of people around the world. Interpretation of ancient myths and stories can be interesting, can also be difficult. This process of interpretation, in Judaism, it's known as midrash. It involves trying to tempt and squeeze and wrestle the meaning out of the old narratives. Rabbis and teachers and scholars have been doing this midrash for millennia, because each new generation must interpret these stories for themselves. Meaning has to shift, doesn't it? As times change and as people grow and as contexts morph into something new. So with one eye on tradition, one eye on the present, and a nod towards the future, we end up using these old tales once again to figure out anew what it is we're doing here and what it means to be alive in this time and in this place together. As I've talked about this Hanukkah this tradition and these narratives with people in Unitarian, Universalist, and interfaith settings, I've heard people say that it bothers them that the story behind the holiday seems to be so much about war. We don't want a bright, light family holiday to be, at its core, about violence. Seems easy to tell our kids that we light the candles to remember God's gift of light. It's more problematic to explain to them that the heroes of the story are the warriors with the most prowess at dispatching their opponents. But then that aversion to violence may not hold too much water when you consider that the woman who is held up as the greatest heroine of the period, if not of all time in the Hebrew narrative, is Judith, who used her feminine wiles, shall we say, to get into the tent of the opposing general, Holofernes, and after getting him good and drunk, removed his head with a knife. This is Artemisia Gentileschi's Judith and Holofernes. And far from PG rated, it sounds more like the backstory of one of those shoot-'em-up video games than like an event that you'd want to use as the center of a warm and cuddly holiday family. But we'll get rid of that screen quickly. One thing I've read about Hanukkah that disturbs me actually even more is the interpretation that says that the holiday commemorates not the Jewish victory over the foreign oppressor Antiochus IV at all, but rather the victory of conservative Jews over liberal Jews. In this telling of the story, the Maccabees were from the hinterlands. They're rural conservatives, if you will, who went on a rampage against the Hellenized Jews of the cities. And one way to explain the practices of the Hellenized Jews is to say that they were willing to accept the others among them and to live with and among many different people with many different traditions. In other words, they were what we'd call welcoming, willing to accept people of other cultures and faiths as their neighbors, as their friends. One less magnanimous way to define those urban liberal elites is to say that the Hellenized Jews were turncoats who left the ways of their parents behind. They were willing to defile the true Judaism and assimilate with the ways of the evil world. So they obviously had to be driven from the temple. They had to be driven from the life of the real one community. This is for me a difficult way to think about the story at the heart of the holiday. I personally would have a hard time lighting a menorah and saying prayers and giving gifts in honor of some closed-minded bumpkins out of the boonies. So thank goodness I can, as a Unitarian Universalist, choose to set that particular reading of Hanukkah far aside. Now, considering that we can make the choice to read these stories differently, let's go from the religious holiday that ends tomorrow evening or this evening, back about 10 days ago to the national the national holiday we just finished observing, Thanksgiving. My wife Linda and I went to Austin to visit with her mom and our kids and family, including 2 of our grandboys. While we were there, we got to hear their take, often, on popular culture. And we asked about the books they were reading and the games they were playing. Ben was working his way through a very thick volume of very tiny words of the complete works of H.P. Lovecraft, an early 20th century New England author who was influenced by Edgar Allan Poe and who wrote a number of works that have been built into the Cthulhu mythos. Maybe you're familiar with it. If you're not, you know if Lovecraft was influenced by Poe, that his stuff is sort of on the scary side, existentially terrifying. If you're going to read Lovecraft, Please be advised that the author was a man of his time with antiquated ideas about race. He's also trying to convince his readers of humanity's totally insignificant place in the universe. I believe my grandsons are aware of these issues, and I believe they are properly critical. I hope they are properly critical. If you can get past those issues, try Lovecraft yourself. One of the games they're playing is called Age of Sigmar, and it's a spiritual successor, they say, to a miniature fantasy game called Warhammer. Maybe you play this at your house. Maybe. This game's inspired by the writings of J.R.R. Tolkien, by Christian mythology, and in these images of the figures used to play the game, I see a definite Mayan influence somehow with these, especially in the weapons they carry. They look very Mayan to me. So if I were worried about Hanukkah being too violent, Another thing our grandsons do is they watch movies. They watch a lot of movies, especially all those based on comic books. Starts to seem to me like that's all there is out there these days. You may know some of the usual characters: Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman over at DC Comics, and Spider-Man, Black Panther, Deadpool, Captain America, these ringing a bell, over at Marvel. I don't know if you've seen any of the massive number of these superhero movies yet. I don't know if you ever will. I would certainly understand if you haven't or won't. In my life, I have apparently been more enamored of movies about regular people living in a regular universe under the regular rules of regular Newtonian physics. And for myself, over time, I have been able to sometimes see some stuff that's interesting to me. One example is the main character in the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, Peter Quill, came out of an interestingly shaped family. His single mom mother died when he was young, and because Peter didn't know who his biological father was, he was raised by an, of course, intergalactic ruffian. Eventually, he'll learn that his father is a god who is very powerful and who will live eternally and can, if they wish, pass on those traits to his son, if the son wishes. So what to do? Do you want eternal life or not? In these comic book movies and fantasy short stories and miniature war games, there are superpowers galore. Magic and wands and spells, superhero abilities, sci-fi settings, galactic plot twists. As I said, I'm not usually much for superheroes and superpowers and super everything else. But if you'll look, you may see where the characters in these story universes are doing their absolute best to respond to the evil they encounter, as cartoon-like as some of that evil seems to be. These characters are willing to give of themselves and put themselves into difficult situations to make life better for their loved ones and their neighbors. I can't imagine any of us would fault them for that. If these mythic tales don't quite resonate with me in the beginning, I can see that they light up my kids' worlds. This is where they live. These are the stories that animate them and the myths that give their lives meaning. I think back on the myths I heard as a small child, particularly the religious ones like the Christmas story, the Easter story, the stories of Abraham and Sarah and Hagar and Ishmael and Isaac. And as much as I take those stories now, not as history necessarily, but as metaphor and simile and symbol, I know those stories are not going to resonate with everybody I meet in Unitarian Universalist circles. And it's the same with Hanukkah, isn't it? Regardless of how we might interpret it collectively, on a personal level, the Hanukkah story is going to resonate deeply with some of us. And so the symbols of the season will warm our hearts and elicit fond memories, perhaps of childhoods gone by. For others of us, the symbols of Hanukkah may stick in our craw a little bit. They might cause some existential pain as we recall difficult memories from our earlier lives. For others, I guess that the symbols of Hanukkah draw a complete blank, with no emotional attachments at all. We didn't grow up with it. It's not the way we look at the world today. The whole Hanukkah thing fails to resonate on much of any level at all. It's going to be the same way with mythic legends involving wands and wizards and super people wielding superpowers. It's not unique to a Unitarian Universalist congregation, but it seems very natural in our settings that we'd have a variety of reactions and very different levels of affinity among us to any of the stories we tell, whether ancient or modern. But then, if we hold no stories in common, how is it we, figuratively speaking, keep our temple lit? If we hold no stories in common, how is it we keep our temple lit? For one answer, I will look to my grandboys again. If my grandkids aren't familiar with the Hanukkah story about God's miraculous gift of lighting the temple, if they aren't familiar with the conversations about selfless action that the Bhagavad Gita tells us Arjuna had with Lord Krishna out on the battlefield, if they haven't yet noticed the deeper message of the Viking myth of Ragnarok, that noble thought and noble behavior is what ultimately matters in this broken world. Perhaps they do dream. They dream of, like their Lovecraft characters and comic book heroes and Potterworld wizards, they dream of bringing their superpowers to bear against the things in their world that they sense to be wrong and dangerous, against the ideas that they know to be wicked and unloving. If you had to list your superpowers, what would they be? I bet not many of us are faster than a speeding bullet, more powerful than a locomotive, or able to leap tall buildings in a single bound. If we ever were, it's not in the cards today. But I know, I've experienced it, that some of you are courageous and strong and committed, flexible and reflective, compassionate, and creative, intelligent, imaginative, intuitive. And I think those are exactly the superpowers we need today as we search for the stories and the mythologies that will keep our temples lit during all these holiday seasons and all of our regular days and all of the dark nights of the soul that will surely come. Let's keep telling the stories and see what we find. In the immortal words of Buzz Lightyear, to infinity and beyond. So may it be. Our last hymn is in our hymnal. It's listed under the humanist hymns, and it is the only hymn I know of that has the word God in the title twice. So go figure. We'll try singing it anyway. It is at number 115, God of Grace and God of Glory, I swear to you, it is under the humanist hymn listings. I invite you to rise up as you're willing and able.
Need a sense of humor.
God of grace and God of glory, on thy people pour thy power, crown thine ancient church's story, bring its blood to glorious flower. Grant us wisdom, grant us courage, for the raising of his power, for the raising of his power. Though the clouds of evil round us hide thy brightness from our gaze, from the fears that long have bound us, free our hearts to faith and praise. Grant us wisdom, grant us courage, for the living of these days, for the living of these days. To thy children's warring madness, bend our mind to thy control. Shame our wanton selfish gladness, rich in things and poor in soul. Grant us wisdom, grant us courage, make thy peace our daily goal. Make thy peace our daily goal. Fill us with a living vision, heal our wounds that we may be bound as one beyond division in the struggle to be free. Grant us wisdom, grant us courage, ears to hear and eyes to see. Ears to hear and eyes to see. If you'd go out and get a piece of cake in honor of Grace's birthday and then come back in, there will be a Board of Trustees meeting about the upcoming searches. Our benediction today comes from the Reverend Sarah Moores Campbell. Campbell. We receive fragments of holiness, glimpses of eternity, brief moments of insight. Let us gather them up for the precious gifts that they are and renewed by their grace, move boldly into the unknown. Go in peace, walk softly on your paths, and may the light of love shine on you all your days.
I'll be here.